And welcome in to PressBox Live. I am your host, the managing editor for PressBox, Luke Jackson. No Stan Charles alongside me, but alongside me today is our soccer writer, Brooks DuBose, and we are going to talk a little World Cup. Brooks, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited for games to start tomorrow at I think 3 o'clock. Mexico is the opening game against South Africa. So exciting games ahead.
Okay. So this is probably what the first World Cup stateside in how long?
Yeah, this is the first one since '94. So
Wow.
that's what 32 years. And that '94 World Cup was kind of like a somewhat of an impetus for the U.S. to launch a domestic league because they
Hmm.
basically did not have one before that. And so 2 years after that, the MLS started, and now we are 30 years into that league, looking pretty healthy in terms of finances and number of teams and competition maybe isn't that high. But anyway, that '94 World Cup was sort of the launching of what we know now as the sort of modern national soccer movement in this country.
Okay. So looking at this year's tournament, the thing that pops off the page right away is that for the first time, it's 48 teams.
Yeah.
Typically, it's been 32, and two tournaments ago, 32 wasn't enough for the U.S. to qualify, right? And that was dramatic, to say the least, the fact that they didn't make it. Why did FIFA go to 48 teams, excuse me? And what countries did that potentially help?
Well, I mean, I think the short answer is money, as it often always is with these large entities. It reminds me a little bit of the same calculus that the NCAA is sort of undertaking in terms of dealing with potential expansion to the CFP and also March Madness. And so, the short answer is that if you expand to 48 teams from 32, which I think it's been 32 since '98. So that's a solid chunk of time that we've had this kind of eight groups of four teams. Top two teams from each group advance into a knockout round. Now you kind of are expanding that to be 16 additional teams are now getting in. That benefits a lot of the. I mean, they're essentially the way FIFA did it is they allowed regions like Africa and Asia and Oceania to basically have more slots. And so we have, I think, four teams that are making their debut: Cape Verde, Curacao, Jordan, and Uzbekistan. So some teams that you're probably your well versed soccer fan maybe isn't quite familiar with the you know, Uzbekistani national team. So that helps. It helps those teams. It also helps some of the teams that are in Europe that maybe had not qualified in a really long time. Norway qualified for the first time since '98. Scotland qualified for the first time in over 30 years. So some of those sort of historically relevant teams are now able to get in. And so the going back to sort of the reasoning for it, expanding those to 48 teams means more tickets, means more games, means more sponsorships, means more merch, means more ad money for all those additional teams. I think we're going from there was 64 games 4 years ago to now 104 games. So that's like a 60% increase in the number of just games that will be on TV, which is great for your average fan to if you just love watching soccer games. There's going to be an absolute ton over the next 5 weeks.
Mm.
But if you want the more kind of PC answer, they want to expand into markets that are maybe not as well established as the U.S. market or the European market. Asia and Africa, they want people to watch those games, subscribe to their local TV station, and watch those games. And as a result, they'll probably, I think the estimates are around $13 billion that they will make, not just from the tournament itself, but basically this cycle where teams are qualifying. That basically the last 3 to 4 years they will rake in about $13 billion. So
Wow. Okay. So the other thing that seemed new to me was that we've essentially gone to quarters in soccer for the World Cup, right?
Yeah.
They found a way to insert TV timeouts into live soccer action, right?
Yes.
What's all that? What's that about?
So, I mean, I think it's been, announced under the guise of U.S. summers are pretty punishing, and so you want to ensure the safety of the players by implementing a 3-minute water break during each half, about in the middle of the 45-minute period. So that's in like the 22 to 23-minute range. But the thing is they've also announced that they will be showing ads during that break. They're not just going to stay on field. That goes back to the money thing of yes, it's probably good that they're providing hydration break for the teams that are playing in Phoenix or Miami or Texas, but it also allows FIFA to or Fox to cut away and sell some more ads. So to your point, it does essentially create the first tournament where soccer is played in quarters. But I guess that's just sort of the way it goes. I mentioned college basketball before. How many TV timeouts are in those games. It's just interminable sometimes, where you're just sitting there as from a TV experience. Not the most fun thing, but people are still going to watch, I think, regardless.
Right, right. And from an in-person standpoint, the ticket prices for, at least for right now, for some of these games are out of control. Are there any games out there for soccer fans in the States that might be affordable, or are they
Yeah.
all just out of control?
I mean, I think the short answer is that there's the vast majority of tickets are just probably too rich for your average consumer. I know that there's been some effort in New York and other places to essentially like buy tickets at a discount and distribute them to fans so that your sort of everyday Joe and Jane can go take their kids to watch a game and not basically pay a mortgage to do that. I looked in Philadelphia, since we're in Baltimore. That's the closest host city, and even a standard group game between Ivory Coast and Curacao, at least as of a few weeks ago, was six, seven, $800 for even the nosebleeds. And that's just, I think that's a bridge too far for
Right.
a lot of people. So I think it's going to be a pretty. I mean, there's a lot of unsold tickets at this moment, and we're about
Hmm.
24 hours away from the first game. I think some of those will get nabbed up at a discount.
Hmm.
So maybe the pendulum will come back a little bit. But if you want to go to one of the three USA group games, two are in LA and one is in Seattle, you're looking at five figures easy. Maybe a handful that are in the lower than that, but it's an incredibly expensive proposition for a lot of people. So it's unfortunate. I was so excited years ago when we were granted this. To be host, that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to go. I wasn't old enough for '94, but it turned out that I've got two kids in daycare, so I'm not going to be able to pay for even a group stage game against two teams I don't really care about, but would love to
Right,
be in the room for. So
right. So let's talk a little bit about the U.S. men's national team. Um, How, first of all, who's the coach? Because that changed, I believe, a couple years ago, right?
yeah, yep.
Who
Um,
and how has the build up to the World Cup been for them? Has it been largely successful?
Yeah, this is interesting. So the head coach is Mauricio Pochettino. He is an Argentinian. Had a long professional career in La Liga, and also in the Argentina national team, and then went into coaching and coached a little bit in Spain, and then more recently came to the Premier League, played for coach for Tottenham and Chelsea, um, and then was hired by the national team in, I believe, like December of 24. So we're about a year and a half into his tenure, and he was basically hired because he has credentials. He's a very good coach. He has a specific playing style that he wants to implement, and he is a real deal gaffer, as they call him, like in England. Like he's a manager, and he's going to, you know, control the team. He's going to, you know, push them in a way that, you know, I think they will play for him. If you hear from former players, especially at Tottenham, they will die for this guy. So I don't know how effective he has been at doing that for the national team, just because he is not with them 24/7 like he is during a 9-month Premier League season. It's very sporadic. These team camps, international breaks that come up throughout the season, he really has to be, you know, implement his style and his system in a way that, you know, not only they play and in those games, in the friendly games, but then it sticks. And then when they come back a few months later, it's, you know, they are able to hit the ground running. I think from a, you know, from like a big picture standpoint, the last 2 years have been pretty difficult, I would say, just because if you look back at the last two tournaments that this team has played in, they played in the Copa America, which is that was in 24. That was before Pochettino came in. That was a little bit of a disaster, and it's kind of why Greg Berhalter, the previous coach, was fired. Is because Copa America is a mix of South American teams, but they've also started to invite teams. So like they invited Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the U.S. To basically like help bolster the competition. And like there are some pretty heavy hitter South American teams, and we did not play very well in that tournament. You know, that was 2 years after the 22 Qatar World Cup, and so it was like our first opportunity to be like, okay, where have we come since that last World Cup? We did not get out of the group, which was unfortunate. And then fast forward to last year, they were playing in the Gold Cup. The Gold Cup is similarly a mix of North American and Central American teams that play every 2 years. And in the lead up to that tournament, Christian Pulisic, our, you know, captain and best player, announced that he was not going to play in that tournament, which caused quite an uproar. A lot of former USA players were like, you can't be the captain of the team if you're not going to play in a major tournament like this. His justification was he had a long AC Milan season and needed a break. His body, he said, you know, he's coming off an injury, and he, you know, so it was relatively justified. However, you know, there was definitely some backlash to his decision not to play in that, and we ended up losing to Mexico in the final. So that's our main rival. So kind of a insult to injury a little bit there. So I think in terms of vibes and also results, it hasn't been very good. However, I think there has been, and I think Pochettino has talked about this in press conferences and whatnot, is that like interest in the team is going to just naturally escalate. It's kind of like in the lead up to the World Cup, especially because this is on home soil. You know, I think just big picture, we're 8 years removed from failing to qualify in 2018. And that was just a disaster because that team included sort of a young crop of players, including Pulisic, Weston McKennie, and Tyler Adams, who were both midfielders. They were all basically teenagers, and missing out on that chance to go sort of test their mettle in Russia was a missed opportunity. And so you fast forward to 2022, and I think the USA Soccer looked at it as, okay, Qatar is the stepping stone for 4 years later coming back to America to play in their first like major World Cup. So 22 was getting their feet wet, you know, learning how to play in a World Cup. They were the youngest squad in that tournament, which and they performed well. They got out of the group, you know, took care of business, and then lost a really tough round of 16 knockout match to the Netherlands. But by all accounts, it was a solid performance, and those guys got, you know, invaluable experience in that. Now we're 4 years on from that, and the core of the team, those three players I just mentioned, plus a few others, are all in their mid to late 20s, solidly in their primes, all playing at top levels in England and Europe. And you know, it's kind of a great opportunity. They have a lot of things going for them. They're relatively healthy. Pochettino has established a kind of a defensive playing style that I think benefits and suits the makeup of the team. And I think they're in a group that's really winnable. And also I think just from like a sort of logistical standpoint, a lot of teams, the US is a very large country and there are sites across every time zone. There are a lot of teams that have to make a lot of trips, long flights. I'll tell you, English players are not used to taking 5 hour flights. That
Mhm.
island is very small. We have all three of our group games on the West Coast, same time zone. And if we win our group, they would stay on the West Coast through the quarterfinals. So it's a huge opportunity, I would say, for them, just from a opportunity standpoint.
Do you feel like the expectation is to A, get out of the group, and B, make it further than they did last time?
Yeah, so the group is very winnable. The three games that they're playing, so on Friday, they play Paraguay. Paraguay is a very well organized team. They are super defense oriented. They're going to be really hard to score against. And also, their top scorer was hurt in their last friendly. So their sort of offensive firepower has been kind of limited a little bit, I think, by that. Um, and then we play Australia the following week in Seattle. Australia, we've kind of developed a pretty healthy rivalry with them over the years, but we should win that game, bar none. They are kind of, I think, universally predicted to finish last in the group. And then lastly, on the 25th, it's probably the hardest match of the three is against Turkey back in LA. Turkey has actually made some runs in this tournament before. They are kind of a dark horse. They have a player, Arda Güler, who plays for Real Madrid. He's their best player. He's like 21. He's extremely exciting, really threatening from an attacking standpoint. So we have some challenges in these three games, but I think absolutely they could win the group. And I think just from like a expectation standpoint, if you're a fan and you're thinking like, okay, where do we go from here if we are able to win the group? I think making the round of 16 is a minimum requirement. So with the new expansion, it's now 12 teams, or sorry, 12 groups of 4 teams. The top 2 teams in each group automatically qualify. So that's 24 teams moving on. And then with the additional teams, they have said that 8 of the third place teams will also qualify, and that's based on record. So whoever of those 8 teams play the best and have the most points will also advance, which creates a round of 16, or excuse me, a round of 32. And if we win the group, we will have a relatively maybe a little bit of an easier matchup because we would be playing a third place team. And if we can win that game, I think that's a must. And so then that would put us in the round of 16. I think that's the minimum expectation. Our best ever finish was the quarterfinals in 2002. So it's been quite a while. And that would be an incredible achievement to match that if we were to basically win 2 knockout games this year. I think one of the keys, though, is that you have to kind of step up and beat a global heavyweight in the knockout
Mhm.
round. There are no Curaçaos in the knockout round. I think if we think back on the last 5 or 6 tournaments since that 2002 quarterfinal run, these are our finishes. So 2006, we failed to get out of the group, not great. 2010, we made it to the round of 16, but then lost to Ghana.
Mhm.
2014, we made it to round of 16 again, but lost to Belgium. 2018, we didn't qualify. And 2022, we also made it to the round of 16 and lost to the Netherlands. So Ghana, Belgium, and Netherlands are our last 3 knockout games, and we've lost them. Those are heavyweights. Those are kind of the teams that I'm talking about. So you basically have to. It might be a slightly winnable game in the round of 32, but I'm expecting in the round of 16, you're probably going to be matched up against maybe a Belgium, maybe someone basically of that caliber. You have to win that game, and if you don't, then you're kind of essentially treading water a little bit in terms of the progression of the national team wholesale. So.
Let's talk a little bit about Christian Pulisic. Is this his time? Because as you mentioned, in 22, it felt like he was not sort of breaking into the mainstream, but a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned a couple years ago there was the controversy about skipping the tournament. But it feels like this is his time to sort of, um, I, I don't know the best way to phrase it, but it just seems like this should be his summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is absolutely it. He's 27. This is his. He'll be 31 at the next tournament, and I'm
Mhm.
sure athletically he's pretty elite, so he might still be in his prime 4 years from now. But I think from a match fitness standpoint, he's pretty rested. Has not played in a major tournament since 24, so that should not be an issue. I mean, in 22 he played in all four of their matches. So three group games and a knockout game. I think he had a goal and a couple of assists. So he was basically directly involved in every single goal that they scored in that tournament. He is the engine of the team. If he is not in it, we are not making it out of this group easily. So, I think he's a top 75 player in the world, maybe top 100 in that range, which is still quite good. But he's easily the best player on this team. He is their captain. This should be his breakout moment. You know, if he is, going to sort of solidify his legacy in the national team, in the kind of Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey range of things, Tim Howard. He has to perform well at this tournament. I mean, this is going to be the moment to kind of stamp his legacy. He didn't play very well for AC Milan down the stretch. I don't think he scored actually in any of their games in 26. So, but he did score a great goal in their tune-up game against Germany. He played really well against Senegal as well. The other tune-up game that they had. I don't quite know how to what takeaways to get from those games, just because it's like the guys are kind of just you know trying to keep their fitness up and attack and basically don't get hurt before the big show. But yeah, he is the end all be all of this team, and I think he knows that. I think he is aware of the pressure, but he has played really well in big moments. He's played in a Champions League final for Chelsea. He has risen to the occasion. For big moments, and this is probably the biggest for his national team career, I'd say.
There is a local connection on this team in Alex Freeman. Uh, he's the son of Antonio Freeman, who played receiver for Brett Favre with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Um, he's young. He's only about 21 years old. I don't know if he's the youngest guy on this team, but if not, he's close.
He is. I think he is actually.
What kind of defender is he?
He's really athletic. Shocker, his dad played wide receiver in the NFL, so he's got those he's got those genes. He's also kind of an attacking player as well. So he has that sort of he's 6'2", so he's a threat in the box for sure. He's pretty fast. He's a little bit of a hybrid. He can play center back. He can also play right wing or right back rather, and he can get up and down the field. It seems, at least from the games that I've watched, that it's looking like he's going to be. Pochettino has deployed a three center back formation recently. He started out doing sort of a 4-2-3-1, which is what he did at Tottenham and Chelsea, but it didn't really work. We didn't play very well, so he switched to a little bit more of a defensive uh, formation where there are three center backs and two wing backs that kind of go forward, so that you basically go from having three attacking players to five, where the wingers Serginho Dest can kind of like on the right can kind of bomb down and send balls into the box. But from a playing standpoint, this kid is definitely raw. He is he's
How
interesting.
much do you expect him to play?
It seems like he's going to start.
Okay.
He'll be paired next to Chris Richards and Tim Ream, the other two first choice center backs. He started both tune-ups against Senegal and Germany. He's an interesting case. He basically went from an unknown as a 19-year-old to getting national team call-ups less than 2 years later. He basically had a breakout 2025 season in the MLS. He played for Orlando City. Leo came up through their academy. And he played so well that Villarreal in La Liga bought him in the transfer window this past January for like $7 or $8 million. And the transfer was seen as kind of like a somewhat risky because before that, in 25, he had gotten a U.S. men's national team call up. He had played really well. He had scored 2 goals, which is kind of shocking for a defender. And sort of going to La Liga and playing for Villarreal, who are basically like competing for Champions League. People sort of saw it as a risky move that basically he would be giving up a guaranteed place at Orlando and thus a guaranteed place on the national team to basically go compete for minutes in La Liga. It ended up not mattering. He only played like 9 times for Villarreal, but Pochettino still picked him in the May camp, and he's in the final squad. And so he's going to play unless for some reason Pochettino changes formation. It seems as though he might not go the whole way. They might rotate in because he brought like I can't remember how many defenders, but he brought a lot of center backs. But so there might be some rotation, but he's going to get minutes, which is really impressive for a 21-year-old.
Yeah. And so, much like USA Hockey, USA Soccer has a pretty good tradition in net. Who's the keeper this year for the national team, and what's his history with the team?
Yeah, so they're in an interesting position. It's been a little bit of a revolving door since Tim Howard and Brad Friedel or uh, Brad Guzan left. We're talking years now, but so the 3 keepers are Matt Turner and Matt Freese, and then the third choice is Chris Brady. Matt Turner played a little bit of time in the Premier League for Nottingham, but then came back to the MLS and he plays for the Revolution. He was the first choice for a while over the last couple of years, but when Turner was not playing very well in the sort of the I think it was 2 years ago, he sort of lost his spot to Matt Freese, who's the NYCFC keeper. And Freese, it appears, is going to be the number 1 going into the Paraguay game. I don't think that Turner will really see the field unless there's injury. I might be wrong about that, but Freese is, he's pretty solid for NYCFC. I think he's one of the top sort of defenders. He's up there with in terms of saves. He's a good choice. Now, I don't think that he's in that same sort of stratosphere as the greats that have come before. But he's also not a slouch. So I think he'll be passable and he'll do the job.
So everyone knows who Pulisic is.
Yep.
But if there were one guy on this team who you think might become a household name over the next several weeks that many people don't know yet, who would it be?
Yeah. So I have 2 answers. I think people will fall in love with Chris Richards, who is it's not the sexiest pick because he's a defender. He's a center back. He plays for Crystal Palace. He's also coming off an ankle injury, so he might not be 100% fit. But this kid is he's 26. He's pretty experienced. He's the real deal in terms of he is our best defender by far. Tim Ream is the captain and the sort of the voice of the team, but he's also 38. So he's the legs aren't there anymore. Chris Richards is the best defender, and will probably ideally if we're going to move forward and advance, he's going to have to play really, really well. Like that defense is basically just going to have to hold up against some of the best attackers in the world. That's the less sexy pick. I think the more fun one is Folarin Balogun. He is a forward. He's actually, it's interesting. He changed his nationality and became a U.S. citizen. He could have played for England. He's kind of been around the block. He's played for Arsenal for a bit. He now plays for Monaco. But this guy is like your striker. He's 24. He is fast as heck. He's probably the best finisher outside of Pulisic. And he actually had a goal against it was called back against Senegal, where it just if it hadn't been called back, it would be highlight reel stuff. The guy has a great potential to really be kind of our number 9 for the next, maybe not 10 years, but at least this year, this World Cup and into the next one. He has that kind of potential. And I think if he can, get on the score sheet quickly and really just be super aggressive, it just gives us a dimension that we really haven't had in a while. I think the struggle with the national team sort of historically is that we have some of the best athletes in the world. There's no doubt. The other teams have said, time and time again, that our fitness is the best in the world. We don't get tired, but technically, we lack. We're just, in terms of dribbling and passes and shooting. And so his inclusion into the team and his decision to, choose us over, other teams that he could have played for, I think could really benefit us, and could be a huge boon if he's able to score 3-4 goals. That'd be great.
So looking at potential winners of this tournament. So I'm looking at FanDuel Sportsbook right now. France is 5-1.
Yep.
Spain is roughly 5-1. England 7-1. Portugal 8-1. Brazil about 9-1.
Yep.
Of those five, I would say clearly those seem like the top five in terms of
Yeah.
chalk. Which of those would you like, if you had to put a bet down on
Yeah.
any one of those teams right now before the tournament starts? Where are you going?
Well, initially, I would just cop out and say I would not be surprised if any of those big hitters
Okay.
won. If you look at the last 4 winners, so if we included Argentina in that, so that's say just 6. So Argentina in 22, they beat France. France won in 2018. Germany won in 2014, and Spain won in 2010. We include England and Portugal and Brazil in there. Any of those teams, I would not be shocked if they won.
Yeah, Argentina is about 10-1. So
Yeah. A little bit further down. I mean, those are realistically like those are the best that you make. I think if I had to, I for some reason, I think England always is kind of the butt of the joke because
Mhm.
they have not they've only won once. They won in 1966. They have not won since. They invented the sport. It is a joke globally that they cannot win the greatest competition of the sport that they invented. But it seems like this year they might be able to actually do it. Harry Kane, their striker, he's the best striker in the world, bar none. And their coach Thomas Tuchel, who's a German who used to coach for Chelsea and some other places, I think has constructed a team that will. I think it surprised some people that they left home some big names, but he kind of, similar to Pochettino, kind of picked players based on like the system that he wants to run, as opposed to like, well, I have to pick this player because he's a big name and he's really good for his club, and so I would pick England. I think it's maybe it if Spain or France were in a if they're playing against Spain or France, it's going to be tough. But you know what? I'm just going to stick to my guns. Say England. Put my money down.
Is this the last World Cup for Ronaldo and Messi?
Yeah, I think so. I think Ronaldo is. I mean, they're both basically approaching 40. I would not expect either of them to be here 4 years from now. So it is a little bit of a changing of the guard, sort of an end of an era. It's interesting. Portugal is they're on paper one of the best teams in the world, but it's almost as if Ronaldo being in that team actually holds them back because he has to start. So it's almost like his ego is sort of getting in the way of the potential of maybe Portugal winning their first ever World Cup. They've won a Euro, but they've never won a World Cup. And for Argentina, I think Messi. It's really hard to win back-to-back World Cups. It hasn't happened since like the 60s. A lot of teams win and then make it back to the final and lose, a la France 4 years ago. So I think both of them will give their best shot, sort of last hurrah. But I don't foresee either of them, coming back after this.
All right, so casual sports fan is flipping around the channels. What player do they absolutely have to stop to watch?
Ooh, it's a good one. There's a lot of sort of young up and coming guys that are gonna just wow everyone. I mentioned Arda Güler, the Turkish attacking player,
Mhm.
but I'll pick another one. Um, so I believe he was only 16 4 years ago. But Lamine Yamal is a winger he plays for Barcelona and he plays for Spain. Um, this kid it's shocking to think of a teenager essentially already being basically the face of world soccer. I mean, I was talking about the changing of the guard from Messi and Ronaldo. They are handing off or have already handed off that mantle to Lamine Yamal. He is going to win Ballon d'Ors. He's going to win Champions Leagues. He is the real deal. If you look back at his highlights from 22, there's several plays where it's like this kid is 16 years old and he is playing like um, a guy that's 10 years older than him. He is now even better than he was 4 years ago. And if he plays really well, Spain will have a great chance of winning the whole thing. So if you catch a Spain match, stop and sit down and watch it because he will wow you.
Okay. Well, I've kept you long enough. The U.S. plays Paraguay, 9 o'clock Eastern on
Yep,
Friday, the 12th.
yep,
I will be watching. You will be watching. Everyone will be watching, and it's great because no Stanley Cup that night, no NBA Finals that night. It's all soccer that night. We're all looking forward to it. Thank you, Brooks, for stopping by and
yep.
taking time out of your workday. And also, before we go, let people know what you wrote about in the last edition of PressBox for us, and then what you wrote about in the next edition of PressBox, which will be out later this month.
Gotcha. Yes. So let's think back. So the last one I did was, I believe that was in April, right?
Mhm.
I wrote about former Calvert Hall and Maryland standout Ben Bender, who got drafted number one overall to Charlotte, had some injury troubles, and is now kind of trying to resurrect his career with close to home for the Philadelphia Union. That was a cool story. Talked to his whole family, his dad and his brothers. And then coming this, I guess, a week from now, will be a story about John Bell, who plays for Austin FC. He is a Montgomery County native, played for UMBC, and has had a really interesting sort of journeyman career throughout the MLS, and has really just has it was a really impressive guy to talk to, just because he's been through a lot, and he's succeeding, and now he's playing really well for Austin. So that was a fun one to do. So that'll be out in a couple of days.
Yep. You can always find Brooks's soccer stories in every edition of PressBox, and we are, as always, we're thrilled to have them. So thank you for joining me, Brooks. And then maybe next time we talk, we could talk about the Steelers, right?
Please don't don't make me talk about Aaron Rodgers.
All right. All right. Thanks, man.
All right, see you.